I'm from St Teresa's Parish in West Belfast, and I remember going into the church porch one day, it must have been confessions on a Saturday, and there was a little book called Come Follow Me, and I read it, and it made a huge impact on why I was there, what I wanted to do with my life, and what I hoped to do with my life. And I hadn't got enough money with me to pay for it, but I promised I would take it and put the money back in the next week I was in. I think I did, I can't remember, I presume I did. But that little book I carried with me and still have, and it makes a massive difference in following Christ to give meaning to life and to give a journey to Him, and in handing over to Him, life would just be enormously different. And in that little book, I found something of the love of Christ, His generosity, His call, His invitation, His forgiveness, and I wanted to communicate that to people that I meet. I was ordained in 1987 in St Peter's Cathedral, and I was appointed then by Bishop Daly to the parish of the Nativity in Poglas, which I really looked forward to. It was very exciting, but hugely challenging. When we were there were two primary schools, and they had almost 1,900 pupils. So school was massive, the estate was huge, but the people were fantastic. And I went in with my own attitude of what I thought I should be or what I thought I should be doing. And the reality was that the people of Poglas most certainly shaped me and formed me in a way that I would never be grateful enough for. They were fantastic. And I still have friends in that parish. Leaving the parish was traumatic. I'd never experienced this aspect of changing from one place to another. I think I had 9 days' notice to pack up, leave, rearrange, and move to another parish. And I ended up in the parish of Glenavy and Killeed at Crumlin, where I knew nobody. I didn't know the housekeeper, I didn't know the parish priest, I didn't know the altar servers. Everyone was a stranger, and in a week, everybody knew me. The difficulties of dealing with that were traumatic and enormous. Left Crumlin, very happy in Crumlin, met wonderful people there, and again continued to be shaped and formed by them. And then moved to the parish of St Malachy's in the markets in Belfast, where people told me that the people of St Malachy's were the salt of the earth. And there was a uniqueness about the people of St Malachy's that lifted my heart. I remember going there, I was appointed by Bishop Walsh, and he said, I want you to visit houses. And I thought to myself, I have to unpack, I need to make my bed, I need to do other things apart from visit houses on my first day. But I did. I walked into a place called Friendly Street, and it was the most unfriendly place I had been in my life. However, 3 years later, leaving St Malachy's, I walked back down Friendly Street. It was the last place I left. The sun was shining, children were out, the place was alive, and it was the friendliest place that I had ever been in. That contrast was just amazing. I was then moved to St Patrick's, and I act in my role as a hospital chaplain, which I found quite traumatic. My mother was killed in 2000 by a joyrider. My brother's mother as well. So it was traumatic, and moving into hospital I thought was going to be very, very difficult. But by God's grace, it was one of the redeeming aspects of priesthood. I met people who were broken, and in their brokenness, found healing in my own brokenness. And ministering to people who had terminal illness, people who were frightened of surgery, people who were sitting with their family who were dying, people who were jubilant about success of surgery and tests. And it was a wonderful place to be. It had its stresses and its difficulties, particularly in relation to being on call in a 24-hour system. Something very profound that did happen in my first parish was I met a family, a young family. They had a little boy and a little girl. It was like Esau and Jacob. One was blonde and blue-eyed, the other was dark and brown-eyed. And they were expecting the third child. And the third child developed an illness. And between the diagnosis of the illness, the couple had another child. Their third child began to fit. They had this other child as well, which showed symptoms of being fine. It was a one-off thing, they were told by the doctors. The couple conceived again, and they had a third child. And in that time, they had another baby, sorry, a third baby, but their third child died. Their fourth child exhibited the same symptoms, and died. And the other child started to show symptoms of the same. And I remember them telling me They took down the Sacred Heart picture off the wall. They said that they would have nothing to do with God at all. Not only had they buried one child, they had buried a second child, and now they looked as if they were going to bury a third. And I remember thinking, God, you can't blame these people. But the other little girl was perfectly healthy. She was just a little bit of fitting in her sleep, nothing major. She celebrated her first birthday, and they had a party that lasted for a week. And that had a profound effect on my belief in God and the ability to continue to have faith no matter how difficult things are. But I lived in St. Patrick's. My brother priests who were there were a huge support. It was great fun to be there. There was a camaraderie in living with 3 other men, and there were huge joys in that as well. I then was appointed as administrator of St. Patrick's in 2007, which I found daunting because I had to deal with finance, with accounting, with administration, and with things that just seemed to worry you. As a priest in Crumlin, I always used to say, I don't know why you all worry about your debt. I mean, it's to be passed on, everybody has to pick things up. But when it came to the fact of being responsible for it, there were times I didn't sleep that well until I got used to the whole reality. More recently, the situation of parading around St. Patrick's has become a major contentious issue. I remember when I was appointed as administrator of St. Patrick's, my sister-in-law wrote me a letter, and in it she said that may you have the wisdom, may you have courage to follow through in wisdom, and may you have peace and strength to do what is to be done. And in 2012, I was inside the church at the end of August, praying, sitting, wondering, questioning about what should happen, what I should do. And this phrase came to mind, so I went out onto the steps of the church and witnessed something that I will never forget. I found it threatening, I found it just vile sectarianism that I'd never met before. But the following day, a member of the Black Institution came to me and spoke to me and told me how horrified he was at what had happened outside the church. I got letters and email and phone calls of support from people right across the community, and mainly from members of the Protestant Loyalist Unionist community. But in all of that, at times I get butterflies trying to steer a path that in some way has to respect people, respect the freedom of movement, respect rights, but also respect the dignity of everybody involved. It's a difficult path, but it's one that's a constant struggle, and trying to find a way through isn't always easy and can lead to little bits of loss of sleep. Not a lot, but a little bit of nerves.